In today's conversation, I'm going to use a friend of mine as a case study. She already knows because very many farmers are experiencing this. I have a friend of mine who was living in the diaspora and she really got tired of being there. She wanted to come back home and start a poultry farm. She told me she's coming back home to start a poultry farm. That's like almost 2 years ago. 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Yeah. And I asked her, are you really sure about this? She said, I'm extremely sure. I want to come back home and start a poultry farm. This is something that has been on my heart. It's something that I want to do. So she came back and she received her first flock of 700 birds. She started with 700 birds. Guiding her was very easy because the day she received her flock is the same day I was also receiving a flock of mine. She received 700 birds. We got from the same supplier, we had the same breed, so guiding her was very extremely easy. Her birds grew so well, the production was okay. Fast forward, after like a year and some months, she told me, I'm actually planning on buying more birds. So she purchased 1,500 birds after like a year and some months. So her farm grew from 700 birds to 2,200 birds. And I was extremely happy because this is someone I was guiding and the farm is growing. The birds started laying very well. So I met her and she told me, but you know what? As the birds were all laying, the older flock and then this other flock, they were all into production. The farm was doing okay. She had not experienced any major disease outbreaks. uh, Everything was okay, but she told me, I'm actually planning, if there is any chance, I'm planning to go back to diaspora. Things are not adding up. I'm not making money for myself. I cannot even balance 300,000 at the end of the month. This is someone who had 2,200 birds on the farm, but she couldn't even balance 300,000 for herself at the end of the month. So of course we had to sit down and go through some strategies of how she could start paying herself, how her salary should look like. But all this stayed into my head. These are thoughts I couldn't put into words because I know very many farmers are struggling with this. You find very many farmers are growing their farms. Someone who started with 500 birds, they now have almost 3,000, 5,000 birds. But at the end of the day, they cannot afford that nice shoe for themselves. They cannot afford that nice getaway for themselves. Like literally, they are growing the farms, but their quality of life is not improving at all. Very many farmers do not know how to pay themselves, how they should do it, when they should do it. So you find that the farms are growing, but they are not growing financially. And you know, when the farm grows, it's not automatic that you're also growing financially as a person. So that leads me to today's conversation. I want us to talk about how should us as farmers, how should we pay ourselves? What our salary is supposed to look like what? How should our salary look like? So stay with me till the end because in today's video, I'm going to show you strategies you can improve your quality of life as a farmer at the same time while growing your farm. I understand a farm is not a wallet, it is a business, it is supposed to grow, but even you as a person, you are supposed to grow. You're an employee for that farm, you're an investor for that farm, you deserve to be paid. And if you're seeing me for the very first time, my name is Flavia. I'm a poultry farmer who is very passionate about sharing poultry farming knowledge. Stay tuned to this amazing channel and please subscribe if you haven't yet subscribed so we grow this channel, we grow this community.
Morning comes too early, hands already warm, working for a better day, trying to keep me warm. Boss man count his tally, we just count our turn. Fair don't come easy, I had to stand and fight for mine.
So as a farmer, these are some of the strategies you're going to implement in order to be able to pay yourself at the end of the month. I've come with a whiteboard because we are going to calculate numbers as we're going to be seeing later in the video. Strategies for your personal growth as a farmer. Strategy number 1, you're going to pay yourself first. Pay yourself. The same way you buy feeds at the end of the month, I don't care even if you do it at the end of the week. The same way you cater for vaccines, the same way you cater for the employee's salary, is the same way you're going to cater for your salary. You should pay yourself first before you think about any other thing. You should have a fixed percentage from your income. And it should come first. It shouldn't come after the farm has grown to 50,000 birds, to 20,000 birds. It's going to be a non-negotiable. I know someone is going to say, how am I going to be able to pay myself if I've only brought birds and in the first month they are not laying, I'm just investing, then how am I going to cater for my salary? Stay with me till the end, because we are also going to discuss that. How do you cater for your salary when your birds are only laying? You're not getting an income out of them. You're only investing, but you need the salary. We shall get to that. Strategy number 2 is separate salary from investment capital. Now, how are you going to do this? First of all, the biggest mistake you can make as a farmer is investing 100% of your profits into expansion without earning something for yourself. So the easiest way for you to earn something for yourself and grow your farm at the same time is we are going to divide the profits into 3 categories. And these categories are going to vary, but the goal is to divide them into 3 categories. If I'm using my friend as a case study, she had 2,200 birds, but we are going to assume only 2,000 birds were laying. And these 2,000 birds were laying at 85% production. What does that mean? 85% over 85 over 100 times 2,000. That's going to give me 1,700 birds. So if only 1,700 birds are laying, divide by 30. I'm dividing by 30 because a tray of eggs here in Uganda has 30 eggs. Divide by 30. So it means she was getting roughly 56 trays daily. 56 trays daily. Now with 56 trays, let's multiply 56 by 30 days. 30 days of the month. 56 times 30. So at the end of the month, she was getting 1,680 trays. Now, if we are to multiply by the current price of eggs, farm gate price in my region, 1,680 times 10,500, because that's the current market price. That's going to be 17,640,000. This is the income she is getting from eggs minus all the expenses. I know someone is going to say, but you miscalculated the price of eggs. We are not in the same region. Currently, in northern Uganda, a tray of eggs costs 14,000, 13,000. But here in the central farm gate price is at 10,500. So we are assuming at the end of the month, she was collecting 17,640,000 from only the eggs minus the expense. So we are going to divide. So after expenses, note down this figure because I have a small board. We are going to wrap this off. We continue with this same strategy number 2 of separating salary from investments. So this was her income, 17,640,000. Now, if you're using my formulation, if you're to check my YouTube catalog where I talk about feed formulations, we are going to first remove the biggest cost in poultry farming, which is the feed. And with my feed formulation, my average has always been 1,500, and actually it has never been beyond 1,500. So don't come to this video saying, but you miscalculated the price of the feed. Feeds are very high. With poultry farming, we have different feed formulations, and my current feed formulation has never been above 1,500. Well, it can go below 1,500, like 2 months ago, 3 months ago, when the maize prices were high. But let's use the average, 1,500. So we are calculating feed for the 2,000 birds. 2,000 birds. How much are 2,000 birds? What's the quantity of feed they are feeding every day? 2,000 birds, they are going to be feeding 240 kgs daily. How am I getting to this? I'm assuming each bird is consuming 120 grams daily. So daily, she has to feed her birds 240 kilograms. Let's multiply them by the 30 days. 240 times 30. So that's going to be 7 tons of food and 200 kgs times the 1,500 I mentioned. And this price, also the transport costs, everything to do with feed is all included in this price. 1,500. So it means she is spending 10,800,000 on just feeds alone. You get my point? This was her income from only eggs. I'm not counting other things like manure, like what I'm counting only eggs. This was 17,640,000, and then she is spending 10,800,000 on feeds. Then with this, let's add other expenses. I'm doing this randomly. I'm not giving specific figures. Let's add, for example, maybe 1 million. She probably spent on employees' salaries, vaccines, the vets, and all that. So farm expenses are 11,800,000. Now let's subtract this from this. So it means at the end of the month, this farmer is remaining with 5,840,000. That's what this farmer is remaining with. Now, the biggest mistake is for you to invest all this money back into the business. We are going to divide these profits into 3 categories. This is the next step. I hope you have it here because I'm going to wrap. We are going to divide this. Remember this, please note that this is when our birds are in production. I'll get to the other part when our birds are not yet into production. So we have our 5 million. So we have our 5,840,000 as our profits. Let's divide it into the 3 categories I was talking about. The 50%, 40%, and 10%. This makes economic sense to me, to a farmer who wants to grow her farm but still earn something for herself as the investor and employee of that farm. We are going to get 50% of this. $50 of this is 2,920,000. And what are we going to use this for? Please set this aside for farm expansion. I need you to set this aside for your farm expansion. When you want to grow from 2,000 birds to 1,000 birds, Be saving this aside monthly for your farm expansion, to grow your farm, to grow the numbers. Because with farming, the numbers, because farming is all about numbers. Now the 40%. Now the 40% is going to be 2,336,000. Now, this is going to be your salary. As a farmer, as the investor of that farm, your personal salary. You as you, the investor and the farmer. Salary. Now, the 10%. 10% of that. That is 584,000. Now this should cater for, this should be your emergency fund, like the emergency fund of the farm. Farm emergency fund. Emergency fund. Remember, we are dealing with life, but we are dealing with life. You can experience a disease outbreak. You don't need to take a loan to treat the diseases. At least you have you're not touching on the farm expensive fund or the farm expansion fund, or on your salary to cater for farm emergencies. That's why I want you to save aside the 10% as the farm emergency fund. Please note that these categories can actually vary. You can decide to do 50, 30, 20, 50, like whatever works for you. But the goal is for you to have categories. The goal is for you to have categories in which you divide your profits, to be able to expand your farm, earn a salary, and have an emergency fund. Actually, this can also be a debt repayment. I've seen people who take loans to start farms, which is not good. I don't support it. But there are times you can maybe seek a loan from your feed supplier. This can help you pay up that loan, the emergency fund. So I've divided this in these categories. Now we go back to strategy number 3. Remember, this was just strategy number 2. We are going to strategy number 3. Strategy number 3, expand only when your current flock can pay itself and give you profits. Now, these are some of the mistakes I also made. I would consider this poor scaling. Like, you buy birds, for example, you buy 1,000 birds. Immediately when they start laying, you go again and buy other birds. Like, these birds have not even yet started making a profit, but you're buying more birds. So first think to yourself, am I just increasing the numbers, or I'm just increasing my level of stress? Because these birds have not yet started making reasonable profits, but you're bringing more birds to feed. So understand when to bring more birds. Understand the right time to do the proper scaling. Like, for example, the best example I would give, if your birds have started laying and maybe they've laid, for example, 8 months and they are completing their peak, or they're still in their peak production, that's when you should now start the brooder, because you're going to be able, those older birds are going to be able to feed the younger birds without you stressing a finger. And you should have budgeted for your salary prior to bringing the young flock. I hope you get my point. Strategy number 4. Strategy 4 is have a personal budget. Have a personal budget. Now, I don't know what's wrong. Okay, very many farmers, the way we operate our farms, because we operate them in a very informal way, we regard them as informal businesses. You will find that you're doing random withdrawals from the business. You don't have a structure of how you pay yourself. So you don't have a personal budget for yourself. But I would urge all farmers to have personal budgets. I'm not talking about farm budgets. Have a personal budget for you as the farmer. Like, what do you need the money for at the end of the month? Decide on what your family needs each month, and then your salary should be able to cover that. Your salary, not the farm money, your salary should be able to cover that. And you're only going to be able to decide on what you need at the end of the month or what your family needs if you have a personal budget. But if you don't have a personal budget, you're going to find yourself making random withdrawals from the business, money that is supposed to probably expand the farm, probably buy feeds. You're going to use it on yourself because you don't have a personal budget as a person. So have a personal budget as a farmer, and then your salary is supposed to cover the personal budget. No matter what happens, you're not supposed to eat the investment capital. You're not supposed to eat the emergency fund. Everything you need should be covered by your salary. That's why it's very important for you to have a personal budget. Now, strategy number 5 is reward yourself for all the milestones. Reward yourself for all the milestones. The milestones. Very many farmers will say, I'll reward myself when I reach a certain number. I'll reward myself when I reach 10,000 birds. I'll reward myself when I reach 20,000 birds. But there are very many milestones. For example, if you've been able to keep your mortalities below a certain percentage, reward yourself, reward your employees because they have done really well. That's another way of you paying yourself. Like, you're not eating the investment capital, but because you know you've been able to keep the mortalities down. Remember, we are dealing with life. This is such a great milestone. And then when it comes to egg production, me in my head, I always look at the 85% target. Though I don't tell my employees that that's my target, but I always look at the 85% target. But on very many occasions, actually very many cycles, I've been able to hit over 85%. I've been able to perform like at 87%, 90%. So whenever we hit 90%, or 87%, because my target is always 85. If we hit 87%, the extra trays that I'm collecting from above my percentage, I use that to reward myself and to also reward my employees. Rewarding yourself doesn't have to be extremely expensive. It could be a nice getaway. It could be a nice shoe. It could be something that you really enjoy. It could be going for the movies. It could be like, reward yourself. Like, don't look like, they usually call us peasants. And honestly, many times farmers, we look very poor, yet we are growing our farms, we are feeding families, but we fail to improve our quality of life. We fail to even put together a very decent meal, yet we feed families all over the country. So reward yourself if you hit certain targets. For me, in my head, my target is always 85%, but very many cycles I've been able to go beyond 85%. So the extra number of trays I'm collecting, I know I'm not even putting that in my salary. I'm not putting that extra money in my salary. I'm not putting it into the farm expansion unless it's really, really a lot. And I'm not putting it in the emergency fund. However, I'm using it to reward myself, to reward my employees within that budget, within that which has exceeded the percentage. So reward yourself for all the milestones. It could be mortalities down, it could be egg production going up. Whatever you can do, reward yourself. Now I'm going back to the part where someone is going to ask, but in the first 5 or 6 months, when my birds are not laying, how do you expect me to pay myself? Sometimes I've even taken a loan, though I say I don't advise someone to take a loan to start a poultry farm. With a poultry farm, we are dealing with creatures that have life. anything can happen. Well, it's not good to imagine the worst, but yeah, it can happen. So you shouldn't take a loan. Someone is going to say, "What? How am I going to pay yourself?" Now, for me, it's very simple. Number one, the same way you collected that money and you budgeted for feeds, you budgeted for the birds, for the chicks, you budgeted for the vaccines and everything to do with the farm. I want you to also budget your salary. If you're only starting poultry farming, even if you're already an experienced farmer, when you offlay, before you invest that money wherever you invest it, the offlay money, please have a budget for those 5 months, because the flock that is laying on the farm is not going to be able to pay you at the same time feed the young chicks. It's not going to be able to pay you and at the same time feed the chicks that you've brought on the farm, especially if the numbers are the same or the numbers are higher. I hope you get my point. So when you offlay, budget your salary before you invest that money elsewhere. Budget for your salary for the 5 months. And if you're a new farmer, you don't have any offlay, you're just starting off, that same capital you're collecting to start a poultry farm, first budget for the what? Budget your salary for the 6 months, for the 6 months. Same way you're budgeting for, because very many people come to me, how much money do I need for the 6 months? I'm going to bring 1,000 birds. How much money do I need to feed my birds? The same way you're collecting that money, go back, make a personal budget for yourself. What do you need? What does your whole house, what does your family need? What do you cater for in your family? Have a budget and cater for your salary. Collect it before you bring this, before chicks arrive on the farm. Have a 6 months salary already set aside. I hope that's number one. Now, number two, if you can't do this, if you can't have a salary set aside before you bring the chicks, what I want you to do is to have another source of income. When you're starting a poultry farm, especially when you're only starting, I always tell people who are in diaspora, even people who are in the country but you already have a job, please don't leave your job to start a poultry farm. Start a poultry farm when you're still on your job. Let the poultry farm call you from your job to come and settle down with it, because you're going to need money. So you need to have another source of income. It could be remain on the job. If you're only starting, please remain on the job. Let the farm grow. As it grows, it's going to call you by itself. Remain on the job. If you're not privileged with a job, you probably have a spouse, like you probably have a partner. You're going to depend on their income those first months, because those first months we are investing, we are pouring into the farm. We are only pouring into the farm. You don't have salary set aside, so you're probably going to depend on your partner's income for this month. Now, for experienced farmers like me who already have like each year we offlay. During these seasons, I sell manure. This is also another source of income that I can use and add it on my salary in case it's not adding up. I have 3,200 birds. I have 4 poultry houses, and in each house I collect almost 30 bags of manure monthly. So in case my salary isn't adding up in these 5 months, because in as much as I already have, I be having laying flocks when I bring my brooder, when I bring the day old chicks, but those old birds are not going to feed the young chicks, and they also pay me in these 5 months. They pay me the way I want to be paid. or like the cash flow isn't going to remain the same, especially if I bring more numbers than the birds that are laying on the farm. So what I do, I also sell manure. I sell manure monthly. I'm intentional. I look for the market. When I sell manure, at the end of the month, I can sell 90 bags, 120 bags. This can top up on my salary very well. I hope you get my point. So have another source of salary during these 5-6 months. Another thing you can consider doing in these 5-6 months before the birds start laying is think across multiple flocks. If I have 3 flocks on the farm, I know if I have 3 flocks on the farm, different ages, each flock is catering for something. There is a flock that is going to be catering probably for the young chicks that are not able to lay, that are not yet into production. And then there is another flock that I expect to pay my employees, to pay for the vaccines, to pay me. I hope you get my point. So you should think across multiple flocks. Then another thing, after an off-lay, when you've off-laid at the end of the cycle, how do you budget for that money? If you remember the 3 categories I mentioned, you're going to divide those profits. Or you can decide, for some people, I've seen people who use that as their entire salary for the year, and with whatever they get from eggs, that is only used as their working capital throughout. But when they off-lay, that's what they use for themselves as their salary, as the investors. Budgets and off-lay budgets. With an off-lay budget, let me try diversifying it. So I'm diversifying on what I meant saving from the off-lay or saving from the previous flow. Previous flow. If you're already into production as a farmer, like you off-lay, then you bring more birds. And actually, I've seen people when they off-lay, they use that money entirely for themselves, and from the egg sales or the money, the income they get from the eggs, that's what they use to expand the farm, to cater for the farm. They use it as the working capital, and then with an off-lay, that's what they consider as their own money as investors. However, if you're a farmer who is applying the categories I mentioned from your egg sales, you get your salary. From the egg sales, you get money to expand the farm, you get an emergency fund. Even when you off-lay, I expect you to apply the same categories. For example, let's say you started with 1,000 birds. At the end of the cycle, I don't think you're going to have all the 1,000 birds, because we know birds die. They do die. Sometimes they die suddenly, sometimes disease outbreaks, sometimes accidents. They do die. So let's assume you have, at the end of the cycle, end of the 2 years, you have 850 birds. 850 birds. You're selling them each at 20,000. Please don't come and say, birds are not at 20,000. It depends on how you sell your product. I'm counting 20,000 because this is how I've sold my birds for the last 2 cycles. This is the price I maintained. So with 850 birds and you sold each bird at 20,000, that's going to be 17 million. How are you investing this 17 million? We can apply the same categories I talked about. We can apply the 50%, the 30%, and the 20%. This is what we are going to do. 50% of 17 million is 8.5 million. Now, if you already had categories while selling eggs, you can apply categories when you off-lay. You could use this 8.5 and expand the farm. Probably add on the number of chicks you're supposed to buy this time around. Probably build another structure, like to expand your farm. Then the 30% of 17 million is 5.1. You can save this as your salary for the next cycle when you have chicks on the farm that are not laying yet. You can have this as your salary to cater for those months. Then the 20% is going to be 3.4 3,400,000. Then this 20%, it could be on the farm account just to cater for in case I cannot manage the feeds, in case something happens, in case the feed prices go high, you have a backup, something to start with. So I hope you've got my point. As farmers, don't become the poorest employee on your farm. Your birds are supposed to feed your future, but they are also supposed to feed your present. Expanding the farm doesn't mean that you're making profits as a person. Expand the farm as you improve your quality of life as a farmer. In poultry farming, we deal with very many uncertainties. Don't have it in mind that I will enjoy when my birds become 1,000. Your goalpost is going to change. When you make 1,000 birds, you're going to now be thinking 3,000. From 3,000, you're going to be thinking 5,000. So the goalpost is going to keep on changing, but your wallet is going to remain empty as a farmer. Plan for yourself as you plan for yourself as you plan for your farm. I hope I've been very clear in this. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one, and please subscribe to the channel, like, comment, share. May the good Lord bless you. Bye bye.